Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and recount this very quickly. My name is Charity Colleen Kraus. I came to Texas for the second time in November of 2016. I had previously been in Texas for a little under a year in the autumn of 2005 through the early summer of 2006. Since I've been in Texas this second time, I attempted at first to seek assistance from law enforcement in reporting on what I understood to be acts of securities fraud that I was concerned were occurring in Texas based upon similar elements I had seen occurring in Texas at the time that I had been witness to in another state. And in the course of experiencing what I did, by August of 2017, following my effort to submit a writ of habeas corpus in consideration of events that had occurred, I submitted to the Supreme Court of Texas, following an alert to members of the legislative branch of Texas, a leave of information in the nature of quo warranto, asking for consideration in the course of events that were ongoing at the time that I understood to be an emergency situation, of a particular understanding of an authority to allow for an understanding that someone was challenging the constitutionality of what was ongoing at the time. And by September of 2017, after what I had experienced, I submitted a letter identifying that I intended to assume the office of the Attorney General of Texas after bearing witness to what I understood to be acts of sedition that had been conducted by the person alleged to be the Attorney General at the time, as well as in conjunction with no efforts to forestall against those unconstitutional activities by the legislature or the governor, and was seeking redress through the Supreme Court of Texas, Texas Supreme Court. In January of 2018, I affirmed that commitment after witnessing the governor of Texas travel to Houston and Harris County to commit himself to unconstitutional activities that I understood were an effort to cover up for the unconstitutional activities that were being conducted by the alleged Attorney General of Texas. I have and do maintain that since that time, I have been actively engaged in activities with an understanding that I had assumed the office of Attorney General of Texas with an understanding that saboteurs had infiltrated the government and were attempting to accomplish unconstitutional means. In this time frame, not only has the Texas legislature seen fit to allow for a masquerading as law of completely unconstitutional precepts that actually accord themselves undue advantage, as well as prioritize specific sects of people within the state of Texas in violation of the Constitution, but have also tried to set in motion conditions to obligate the people of Texas to forms of illegal debt and constitutes violations of the 14th Amendment of the federal Constitution, but also, I believe, engage in processes that not only attempt to engage Texans in violations of the 13th Amendment, but also prioritize and privilege certain other alleged Texans as being the beneficiaries of violations of the 13th Amendment. That they may be trying to accomplish this in a conspiracy with residents of other states does not negate the fact that it is unconstitutional, both by the Texas Constitution and by the Constitution of the federal government of the United States of America. If the federal government of the United States of America refuses to take responsibility for acts of sedition that now legally constitute treason being committed by people operating as if they themselves are members of the government representing the people of the United States, then they have lost their authority to identify themselves as being the constitutional government of the United States, and hence extraordinary measures need to be taken. If we need to, at this time, allow for a withdrawal from the federal compact so that we can provide for our own self-defense as well as establish rule of law within the state of Texas, so that then we can have a possibility for aiding our neighbors and for aiding others in reestablishing constitutional authority when we are in the processes of being subjected to overt efforts to undermine the government, then I contend that's what we need to do. Now, because I have not been able thus far to successfully be able to engage in the execution of various processes that would be necessary in order to establish the kind of stability that needs to be established in order to accomplish certain ends. There has been some consideration of whether or not my initial request or my initial call in January, February 2018 for the state of Texas to go through a period of referendum in order to consider seceding from the federal government has been put into challenge. That the actions that were taken by the legislature under the name of being in the name of the state of Texas were so heinous that they abrogated our just cause claim to secede from the federal union. It's not acceptable to be a part of a compact under fraudulent and false pretenses merely to defraud the government so that then we can try to claim that we are self determining, especially if that premise of alleged self determination or that alleged premise of autonomization is actually about trying to get away with a heist. And unfortunately, the alleged members of the Texas Senate and the Texas House of Representatives, in conjunction with the others that have refused to forestall these seditious activities, have been doing just that. They lack the constitutional authority to do what they're doing. And in the course of doing that, they are jeopardizing our chance to take matters into our own hands and establish some safety for ourselves in the course of what are now egregious violations of the federal Constitution being attempted by people alleging that they are qualified to operate in government in the federal level. I hope you have a good day, and I look forward to hearing from you as soon as possible. As you can see, if you review the codes yourself, and if you go through and understand the timelines, we could possibly accomplish all of this that we need to accomplish by the end of the summer. Is it risky? Yes, it is. Is it going to be dangerous? Yes, it is. But they've been strategically murdering people for over a year already. I have absolutely no intention of letting them get away with it, and I hope you don't either.